This sermon was born in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., tossing and turning, mind racing with snippets of the day's conversations, imagining more skillful responses, and then stretches of anxiety less well-defined, the weight of the world pressing in, and external distractions, night sounds, technological whirring, neighbors snoring, streetcar passing, and a distant foghorn moaning to blind night sea travelers. Wake up, pay attention, beware. Finally, I surrendered and got up thinking about Rosh Hashanah, the shofar, and being awake at 2 a.m. in the morning. There are times when life throws us rude awakenings, insomnia, crying infants, personal catastrophes, the stuff that keeps us up at night when we'd prefer to be asleep, the unexpected hospital run, the car accident, the call from the teenage son in police custody, the diagnosis, the court papers, the loss of someone close. Those times we cannot help but pay attention. The daily veil lifts, exposing our vulnerability and our mortality. No wonder we prefer to sleep through so much of life. Waking up is hard to do. And yet that is the task of the High Holy Days, with all of its sacred theater, the blast of the shofar, the gathering of community, the serious words about who shall live and who shall die. In case life itself has not lately shaken you with some rude awakening, Rosh Hashanah comes as one grand, yearly, cosmic alarm clock. Wake up, all you slumbering souls. And though you may find yourself drifting during the sermon or the chanting of Hebrew from time to time, there is no sleeping through the traditional shofar service in which 100 blasts pierce the air. Awake, awake, awake! James Ponette writes, "We resist waking up. We yearn for trance-like numbness. We choose to stumble through our days as if in a dream, for we are inertial beings, given to the drifting with the tide, heedless of our destination." We've all been there in one way or another. I remember the good old days of sleep deprivation with a newborn in the house, and these are soon to return. Because we had no sound sleep, we also had no true wakefulness. Searching in the cabinet for coffee filters, I'd find the most surprising things. A pint of milk, the telephone, left by some sleepwalker in an ambulatory stupor. But we also sleep through life in a metaphorical way when we tune out the troubles of the world, when we stop paying attention to the needs of our spouses and partners, when we take our comforts and luxuries for granted, when we are too busy to stop and watch a sunset or wait for a child to learn at his own pace, when we plug in so much we forget what it sounds like to hear the birds outside. So what is the seduction of sleep? Sometimes, of course, we sleep to escape painful experience, and that would be enough, but I think it's more fundamental than that. Rabbi Larry Kushner writes, "Universal consciousness is too much to handle and would burn out the circuitry. Other than maybe the Buddha or a smattering of fully enlightened souls, most of us couldn't handle being awake to all of our sensory inputs, let alone a lifetime of memory, thoughts, and emotions. We filter and focus to shield ourselves from system overload. But there is a trade-off, remaining unconscious of our own lived experience. And I'd take it even one step further. Our slumber impacts the world beyond ourselves. Like drivers asleep at the wheel, we run the risk of harming ourselves and others. It's one thing to leave the milk in the cabinet, but it's another to hurt someone you love by remaining unconscious to his or her needs. And like the dozing driver, when we drift through life unaware, we give up the agency and freedom that make it possible to choose the right road for the journey. If we're asleep, we give up our own power to direct the very lives we are living. So how do we awaken? One of the best-known stories of awakening comes to us from the book of Genesis, chapter 28. It's a book about many people, including Jacob. You may remember the story of Jacob's ladder. Jacob was walking, traveling, and one evening, as the sun was setting, he decided he needed to stop for the night in a very ordinary-looking place, rather deserted. He didn't have a pillow, so he tucked some stones together and lay his head down on them and dreamed. And in that dream, he saw a ladder ascending from where he was all the way into the heavens, and angels ascending and descending on the ladder, and God standing at the top, speaking, "I am Adonai, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac," and so on and so on. Well, Jacob awoke from his slumber and said, "Surely God is in this place, and I didn't know it." And he was filled with awe and said, "Ma norah hamakom hazeh." How awesome is this place. This is none other than the house of God and the gateway to the heavens. If we look closely at Jacob's response, it's a bit curious. He does not say God was absent and then came for a visit. No, he says God was already here and I didn't realize it. Jacob's insight here is that the world was already saturated with meaning and holiness. It's just that he was unconscious. What changed was within him. He didn't need to go to the Grand Canyon or pursue a round of bungee jumping to get it. He just needed to tune into what was already going on. For Jacob, awakening was a matter of being fully present to what was already in front of him. As Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel writes, this is one of the goals of the Jewish way of living, to experience commonplace deeds as spiritual adventures, to feel the hidden love and wisdom in all things. My son Adam recently tried to teach me about this. He is at an age where commonplace deeds and ordinary objects are definitely still spiritual adventures. He's 21 months. He's particularly fond of exploring containers. And when he gets involved in a project like putting blocks into a plastic jar and dumping them out over and over and over and over again, it can absorb him for quite some time. He recognizes the amazingness of what he's doing and doesn't want to be interrupted. As you can imagine, I sometimes miss the amazingness of what he's doing and why it would be important not to interrupt him. About a week ago, he was involved in this kind of thing. And while he explored, Raj and I prepared a bath for him. And Adam could hear the water and must have felt the looming interruption on the way. When Raj came to the door, he began to flap his hands and make sounds of resistance. Now, Adam is only 21 months, as I said, and though he has a lot of words, most of his sentences are along the lines of verb, noun, verb, maybe adjective, noun, verb, noun, but mostly things like big truck, eating pasta, that kind of thing. Nothing like, Dad, I appreciate the importance of bath time, and I am sure to enjoy it when I'm ready. But can't you see that I'm involved in a very fascinating project here? Please don't interrupt me while I'm figuring out the mysteries of inside, outside, and the relative size of material objects. I'm sure he would have said that if he could have. But instead, he said something that hit us like a shofar blast. Pointing a finger into the air, he shouted, "Patience!" It worked. It worked. It woke us up to what was needed at that moment. With a single word, Adam woke us up to realize our agenda was not the only agenda. The calls to awaken take many forms. Let me show you one of those forms. I often say to the kids at the school of Or Shalom, this may look to you like some kind of artifact from a nature museum, but really, it's no more than a giant primitive alarm clock. On Rosh Hashanah, it's time to wake up. And we use this ancient technology to help us. The shofar blasts fall into 3 categories. The first, tikiyah, is a long, loud, simple blast, the basic wake-up call. The second blast is shavarim, which means broken. Tradition compares the 3 broken cries of shavarim to a human wail, like the wail of Sarah when she saw a vision of Abraham lifting the knife over Isaac. This is the call to awaken to suffering, our own, that of others. The pain we so often prefer to ignore that seduces us to choose sleep rather than awareness. Shavarim calls us to soften the protections around the heart and to care. The third sound is teruah, 9 staccato notes in quick succession, 4 iambic pairs followed by an extra note. There are different interpretations of what this call means, but I think it expresses abundance, multiplicity, overflow, and grandeur. This is the call to open ourselves to the vastness and intricacy of which we are a part, the glory of creation and the sense of awe and delight available to us when we stop taking everything for granted. So if I had to transcribe the 100 blasts for you in their various permutations, this is how I would render the shofar's call into English. Awake, awake, now, awake. Awaken to the suffering of others. Awaken to the beauty of creation hidden in ordinary things. Awaken to what calls you to be better, to be alive. Awaken to the power and agency that are your God-given human inheritance. Awaken to your limitations, the mortality that will one day claim you. And don't waste another moment of your one wild and precious life. In my experience, something transformative happens when we stop and stand still to listen to that kind of call with other people. In Israel, on Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron, Holocaust Remembrance Day and Memorial Day, a siren sounds, and something remarkable happens. Everyone stops. Everyone. One year, I was out on a busy street at a falafel stand when the siren blared. It took a moment, and then everyone stopped. Every pedestrian, every car, and people got out of their cars in the middle of what was normally a fast, busy road, and they stood in silence as the siren rang out for 60 seconds. We all stopped at once and were aware of one another, of our common history and collective losses, of being together in this place at this moment with our people, remembering, honoring, marking a moment with sacred collective intention. After a minute of standing still, washed in the wail of the siren, we began again to move and speak, but something in us and between us had changed. There is a power to awakening together. Oh, there's the one who called out patience a little while ago. I want to invite you now into an awakening exercise, awakening the sense of taste. Little do you know this, but hidden right in front of you are packets of raisins. They are located under the seat in front of you, near those places where there are little supports for the pews. And if you're near the edge, it's near the one on the end. So look and see if you can find little packets. For now, just, are you finding them? All right, so each of these envelopes has just a few raisins in them, so pass them around to the people near you. Take 1 or 2 raisins at most. And just hold on to them for the moment. Don't do anything yet with them. Apologies to anyone who has a raisin allergy or who hates raisins. Don't take one if you fall into that category. And please, everybody, take care. You are being trusted with great responsibility. Do not abuse the privilege of raisins by dropping them unconsciously on the carpet. Later, I will ask that you make sure to take these envelopes and baggies and extra raisins with you out of the sanctuary. Has anyone had trouble locating themselves a raisin? Raise your hand if you need help finding raisins. Okay. If you're near those people raising their hands, please pass them extra raisins. Choir, they're under your chairs too. Okay, good. Got them. All right. Anyone still need a raisin? Okay. So hold them in your hand. We're going to settle down here, kind of using the techniques that Alan brought to us from earlier in the evening. So first, just quiet yourself. You can even look at the raisin, rotate it in your fingers, gently touch it and squeeze it and notice the texture. Now, I will say, there may be people in this room, because we are quite an enlightened community, who have gone through this type of exercise before. That means if that is you, this is an extra challenge for you, because as we've been discussing, the whole point of this whole talk is don't take anything for granted. Don't be lured into the seduction of thinking you know everything about what's about to happen, and so you don't have to pay attention. So, extra challenge if you've done this before. And maybe you all think you've done this before, because most of us have had raisins, but have you had a contemplative raisin? Perhaps not. Okay, so take some time. Now I'm going to ask you to put this in your mouth in just a minute. Not if you're allergic. But if you're not allergic, you can put it in your mouth. Don't puncture the raisin. Okay, so let's try that. Just put it right in your mouth and close your eyes. And just feel the raisin with your tongue. You can roll it. You can even gently squeeze it between your teeth and sort of feel how the skin and the inside of the raisin are connected or not connected to each other. Notice if there's any taste. Notice also if the sensations are making any connections in your thoughts, in your memories. Maybe you're thinking, what is this crazy rabbi asking me to do? This is so beyond my comfort zone. Maybe you're thinking, raisin? Raisin. What is a raisin? How did this raisin come into my mouth? What kind of journey did it take to get there? Was it really once a grape? All right, take a few more seconds to notice the outside of the raisin, and then in your own time, when you're ready, you can squeeze down with your teeth just enough to puncture the raisin skin. Just be for a few moments with that burst of flavor and texture. You can chew a little bit. We want this to last for a long time, so be patient. And you can chew little by little and see what happens to the inside of the raisin. Notice other textures. Notice if the raisin is in different places in your mouth at the same time. Notice if you have an urge to swallow, if you have saliva happening. I'm going to give you a few moments of pure silence now to just finish the raisin in whatever way you like. Just think, all of those sensations and experiences and thoughts came from a single, slow, conscious encounter with a tiny morsel of food. One single raisin. Imagine what it would be like to be that aware of every bite of food, every sound, every sight. Imagine what it could mean to wake up that much to other dimensions of experience beyond sensation, compassion, joy. I have a few questions to reflect upon while we're still in this meditative moment. In what ways are you asleep or awake in your daily lives? What do you want to awaken to, and what can you do to awaken yourself? Is it enough to be awake? What, if anything, comes out of awakening or afterwards? Please open your eyes. I hate to tell you, but there is an addendum. If we awaken and stay in bed, nothing changes. In order to accomplish the transformation our world needs, we must do more than wake up. We must act upon what we discover when we awaken. I'm going to close with a story. This is from the Magid of Dubnow, a Hasidic Rabbi. There was a man from a small town who was traveling. And he was traveling all over his region to various cities that were much bigger than his town, looking for ways to improve the systems and the sort of ways in which his town operated collectively. And one night he found himself in a big town and slept in an inn, and in the middle of the night was awakened by a great ruckus all around him. It's drums and people banging on pots and pans and yelling and screaming, and he woke up with a start, and he looked around and he couldn't figure out what was going on, and he went down into the lobby and he talked to the innkeeper and he said, "What is going on?" And the innkeeper stopped banging his pan momentarily and said, "Well, this is the fire alarm. Our city has organized itself so that whenever there's a fire, we all have drums and we all know we need to participate in waking each other up." And the man stroked his long, wise-looking beard, and he said, "Wow, that is really amazing. I'm going to have to bring that system back to my little town." And then he went back to sleep. And it was difficult, but he did it, putting cotton in his ears and sleeping, because he understood what was happening. There was a fire alarm, and so he got it. And eventually he went home to his small town, and he gathered all the people of the town who were in leadership positions, and he told stories of his travels, and he told the story of this fire alarm in the big city. And he said, "It's amazing, it's so incredible. Whenever there's a fire, everybody has a drum and a pot and a pan, and they know what to do, and they wake each other up." And everyone said, "Wow, what a great idea. That is wonderful. Let's do that." So they did that. So they organized the town, they gave everyone drums, and they told them about pots and pans and waking each other up if there was a fire, and so on and so forth. And sometime later, wouldn't you know, there was a fire. And at the time, it worked. The people who saw the fire went home and drummed on their drums, and pretty soon the entire village was drumming and pounding and beating on pots and pans, and they were all awake. And while the people waited expectantly for the flames to subside, a number of their homes burned to the ground. They were awake. But they had missed a critical step. The awakening was supposed to be just the beginning.